Well, okay. Welcome everyone to the second session. So as we were discussing, Grace and Rosabella, just to bring you up to speed, we introduced ourselves in the last panel very briefly. So we would really be thankful if you could introduce yourselves as well. I guess everyone else could introduce themselves very quickly as well. And then we will continue with the 2 minutes for each one of the panels with the related questions. And then we will be discussing the possibilities of the book at the end of the panel. Yeah, so actually, whoever would like to start introducing themselves very, very briefly.
Okay, I'm Grace Adebanjo. I'm from SS University. I'm a student, PhD student in my 3rd year. But I'm currently joining in from Canada. So it's 6:54 a.m. right now.
Excellent, thank you, Grace. Anyone would like to introduce themselves? Just very briefly.
Okay, yes, so very quickly, Ute Dubois, I'm Associate Professor of Economics at the French Business School, and I've been working on energy poverty for more than 10 years, working on the policy aspects mostly, and so analysis of public policy with a look at how energy poverty policies are implemented in practice, and more recently working on where the lived experiences of energy poor households.
Excellent, thank you, Ute. Maria Jose, if you could introduce yourself briefly.
I am Maria Jose Manjón from the University of Comillas in Madrid. I'm currently in Glasgow in Strathclyde doing the 3-month stay. My work is on social entrepreneurship and energy poverty in the PhD. I'm the 3rd year. Excellent. And I published two papers before, so I'm on the last stage.
Excellent. Zeus?
Zeus Guevara, from an associate professor of Tecnológico Monterrey in Mexico. I work in energy poverty for about 7 years and trying to span on theoretical and measurement topics as well as measurement and policies.
Excellent. Coralie?
I'm still a postdoc in École des Ponts in Paris, and I'm working about fuel poverty and how households made strategy to cope with food poverty. And now I'm working in postdoc about energy efficiency renovation of building in the private rental sector.
Excellent. Nama?
Hi, Naama Krishna, Ben-Gurion University, Israel. I'm a researcher working on energy policy and energy poverty.
Gerardo?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Gerardo. I'm a research fellow at the SPRU, Sussex University. I was presenting in the first session.
Shailaja?
Hello, everyone. I'm just listening. I'm a professor of regional transformation at the University of Cambridge and very excited to listen to this panel.
And is there anyone missing? I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so I think, so we don't run around again. I think we should, as mentioned again, if we could start with a 2-minute presentations. Right after, we will have questions for that particular presentation, and then we'll go on for the four of them to then open up the discussion and talk about the book. So Coralie, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm so sorry for my English. I'll try to be concentrate. So I'm here to discuss myself on the lived experiences of food poverty, and I have a reading of lived experiences of food poverty allow us to go beyond the concept of food poverty in terms of deficiencies. but also highlighting the resources and skills available to the most precarious to cope with this, with food poverty. So in this, I want to put in light several solutions to tackle food poverty that are deployed in everyday life by these people, and a detailed analysis of these resources that can be mobilized and allows us to go behind our reading with this social, economic, and material trio, and to go more in deep. Indeed, more than a dozen areas of resources are identified and make it possible to integrate all the resources of the everyday life, like emotional resources, computer or relational skills, technical knowledge, or a lot of other ones. I made a little draw that compile all of this. And the aim is to understand the different practices of individuals in dealing with food poverty, and starting from the discourses and practices of the individuals concerned. And so I deployed a qualitative method in these interviews with these people in France during my PhD, so in these last years. And I think they provide a basis for thinking about the resources of individuals to cope with the cold, the bills, but also with the injections to be economical with energy, to be sober in energy consumption. With I will try to think about this. And one question raised by these results is how to integrate these hidden capacities into public policies to combat food poverty, in particular in terms of social upgrading of precarious individuals, by highlighting the capacity they already have and which are not always taken into account or sometimes devalued too by public policies. I hope it was clear.
Do you have a particular question that you'd like to ask the group, Coralie? Or would anyone have any questions for Coralie?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm very interested by the use that you make of the capability framework. So according to your work, what are the most essential capabilities which people mobilize when they are energy poor?
I think one of the most important and most of the time hidden is the social relationships, and how the solidarity and how they can have information to, it's just not to have some people to take good time, it's also to have information to help to go to shopping, to buy some gas, furniture, or to help to physical difficulty, like to see the consumption of your energy that in the, so for example, I think it's one of them. The principle I identify, they are like the typical to have easily life, like read and can speak the language of the country, because this barrier is very important to when you want to have some social aid from institution, because we can't go in, it's harder to access at this solution without this. And yeah, maybe it's this, well, I think it's the most important that not integrate now in the public policies, because economical, for sure, it's very important. If you don't have resources, funding, it's important in food poverty, but I think it's more relational and maybe the symbolic, but it's very near with your presentation about trust, because it's important to have yes, trust about an institution. I already also see that in my study, but also to don't be ashamed about their consumption. There are now we can make like the contrary. Before, some practices that are negatively identified, like I don't know, buy something they are reused, they don't buy new things, and before they are like negative ways, and now they can be positively see, because with the I don't know, the new model of ecology and the new values, they are linked with that.
So does it mean that a policy implication could be to target in priority people who are isolated, who are living in social isolation, for example?
I think it's important, or in the contrary, to personalize the importance of social relation in the role of people who help other people. I don't know how we can say that, but to lots of times they consecrate to other one, the money sometimes too. And yeah, there's a lot of people in food poverty I identify very isolated people, elder people, like we will see after, and mother with child too, isolate mother. So I think yes, it's an important point, I think.
And we have also another question from sales, and from then we will move to the next panel. Session presentation to make sure we have enough time. Yes, sales.
So I already put it in the chat. I have many questions for you, Caroline. Probably we would discuss it later. But the most important one is, how do you reconcile your research with the dichotomy coping versus escaping of poverty, financial poverty?
That's difficult, because I don't know, all of these resources I identify, they're not all disponible for everyone. So sometimes they can use some resources to just cope and just still living in full poverty, but to escape, I think I don't know how to respond to. When you say escaping full poverty, is not be anymore in full poverty, no? Or yeah.
Yeah, in the long run, I know that is very difficult, but probably you should start thinking. I know that you are a PhD student, so you should be thinking of those questions for the future. But we could discuss further, because yeah, I have many questions for you.
I think we can't just play in one resources. We need to have multi-dimensional responses to tackle full poverty. And that's why I would like to go more in deep, not just economical, social items, but to see that there are another items or other resources that are important to take account to make multi-dimensional responses, to just not cope with full poverty, but yeah, to escape. And it's okay, maybe you can give some money or give financial help to full poverty, but if in the same time people don't have the temporary resources, for example, or cultural resources to make some renovation into their house, maybe just the money is not enough. Maybe we need to try to play in other point. I don't know. We can discuss.
Okay, so sorry for cutting you there, Carly. We just need to continue, but it's so interesting what you're doing, because it's kind of like focusing on capabilities and not necessarily as energy as the end, but capabilities, which is also a lot of work that the Challenger has been doing. So it's really interesting if you could connect with each other afterwards. Okay, so could we please continue with Abigail on our mini grids, a solution to energy poverty, a case study of mini grids in Kenya. So you have 2 minutes. If you could also introduce yourself, and we'll open up for questions very briefly.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Abigail Okoko from Kenya. So we are involved in this research project that is on sustainability, inclusivity, governance, and management of mini-grids in Africa. And the whole idea is to look at how mini-grids are stepping, because we know that we have a lot of areas in our country that where people still don't have access to energy. And as we all know, we know that energy is very key for any economical development to take place. And you find that some of these people are already in vulnerable situations, and therefore the lack of access to electricity, energy, increases their vulnerabilities. So, and you find that as much as we have efforts as a country that have been put in place to ensure that people have access to energy, not everyone as of now has access, and we have like around 25% that still doesn't have access to electricity. And therefore you find that some interventions are being put in place, like having mini-grids in place to step up or to increase the accessibility of electricity to these people who are mostly within the very remote areas where probably the infrastructure has not yet reached for them to be able to access electricity. So the aim of the project is to look at the impacts that these mini-grids have on these communities, have on these societies, how are they benefiting, what costs are they incurring in terms of accessing the electricity from these mini-grids, are they able to cope with these cost mechanisms that have been put in place, and at the end of it, are they sustainable? Are the communities able to sustain the cost of electricity that comes to them from these mini-grids? Yeah, so that is the essence of this research, which we've presented.
Excellent. Yeah, Sachin. Would anyone have any questions for Abigail? I think it really nicely connects as well to the idea of entrepreneurs, in your case, Maria Jose.
Right. Sorry. Well, the paper is in relation of social entrepreneurship, and the focus is on social entrepreneurship. We all know energy poverty is a complex social problem.
Oh, sorry. Maria Jose, sorry. We're still on Abigail. Sorry.
Sorry.
Communication. No, so I was just saying that I think that in a way your paper and Abigail can connect with each other. Of this idea of the idea of
social innovation, social entrepreneurship, and how they play an important role where the government doesn't. So it's exactly the starting point of my research was on Global South, but then I moved to Global North because of the proximity to the research. But yes, it's very connected to this work and the impact of social entrepreneurs or social innovation and the nature of social innovation to approach these solutions, not only with economical view, but also social. So yeah, it's exploring the role of a different actor in this field. Yeah, that's exactly.
Excellent. Okay, we'll take questions from sales and then Coralie and then Nama. So very quick questions if possible. And then if you could answer all three questions, Abigail, so we have time for the next two presentations.
Yeah, so hi, Abigail. Thank you.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you what seemed, at least in the earlier stage, the advantage of a mini-grid system compare with just home systems. Like you said, that later maybe that will be the next stage, the next technology. Like why from the beginning there was an attempt to introduce mini grids and not just solar panels for households?
Before you answer, Abigail, just sorry. I'm just gonna if we could gather all the questions. Sales.
Yeah, thank you, Abigail. I would like to know what's the next step for your research, because you mentioned that this economic feasibility, but I missed some economic numbers and estimations. So it's just for you to think about and also let me know.
Coralie, do you want to ask your question too?
Yeah, and I would like to know how you integrate the risk of inequalities between territories, regions, with this mini grid system.
Excellent. Three really good questions. The space is for you, Evan.
Okay, I can go ahead. Okay,
Yes,
the first question on advantages of mini grids versus home solar systems. You know, like we have areas where we still don't have the national grid, which is supplied by the Kenyan government. But before the mini grids came in, we had these home solar systems. You have the small lamps or probably solar panels that are put on the roof. And some of them are quite expensive to acquire. And for some of them, you find that they may not be able to offer this, the same services that electricity in a household would offer. For instance, if you have a solar lamp that will probably just light the sitting room only, but it will not provide electricity that can electrify, for instance, electrical appliances. So you find that probably electricity from a mini grid would have much more advantages, and it would be much more efficient in terms of supplying electricity that can be generally used within the household. And that's why I think for this case, the mini grids will be much more better, because you find that even within those areas where people had already had home solar systems, they'll still go ahead and connect to the mini grids, but still have their home solar systems, which act as backup systems in case the electricity goes off. Yeah, so the mini grids have an advantage over the very small home appliances or home solar systems that people have. Yeah. And in terms of the next step, yeah, you know, like when you do this research, the aim is eventually to have to look at it in terms of policy implications, yeah, regulatory implications, yeah. From this, what is it that can be done to improve the policy space, to improve the policy discussions, the policy debates in terms of increasing the electricity, increasing access to electricity from the different sources of electricity that you can have. How can they complement each other? And even as much as mini grids are being used, what policy measures can be put in place so that the people who are meant to benefit from these mini grids benefit without being disadvantaged or without being pushed towards more economic vulnerability. So it's just a matter of having policies that can be used even by regulators to improve electricity access. Yeah. I hope that answers that. Then in terms of inequalities in territories, the thing is that places where we have these mini grids are essentially already disadvantaged because they are in the remote areas, they are far off from the general population. So in essence, in terms of lack of electricity access, they are already disadvantaged. And the thing is, they only have to cope with the electricity that is provided for them. And in this case, it's only going to be the mini grid. So they may not have an option to choose from which system they get their electricity from. So that is one of the advantages of that. That is one of the disadvantages that these people who live in a very disadvantaged territories experience in terms of electricity access, in terms of energy poverty, that they may not have multiple because they're limited in terms of what sources of electricity they can have at their disposal.
Nice, excellent. Okay, we will move to Sale's presentation. Sales will be presenting on energy poverty in middle-income countries, the case of cities of Monterrey and Saltillo in Mexico. The floor is yours, Sales.
Hi, so we were asked to characterize the condition of energy vulnerability in these two cities of the north of Mexico by Fundación Naturgy, that is a European institution. What we did is we didn't want to use current frameworks or current measurement methodologies for this phenomenon, because as they usually capture different perspectives of the phenomenon, of the very wide complex phenomenon, We went from the roots. So we started with a theoretical definition that includes most of the most well-known definitions of energy poverty, but we included some innovation on it, like the inclusion or the specific inclusion of consumption practices as part of the system that creates energy poverty, because also like the behavior of the people, the inhabitants of the household is very important for this. Then we operationalize this concept through two models, one water governance model and a three-layer model of ecosystem resilience, with which we like reduce the abstraction of the theoretical concept towards a measure and methodology and a measure and instrument that was a survey questionnaire. With this information, we could capture from households 120 data points, and from there we built a multidimensional index that is kind of a collage of different indicators of energy poverty. So Borman affordability perspectives there. Nussbaumer, energy sufficiency, MEPI is already there. Then you have sufficiency, then you have access. We wanted to be broad, as middle-income countries are less well-known in energy poverty research as low-income countries and high-income countries. So we decided to explore more about the specific characteristics in these two cities. With that, we performed a survey, a 3-week survey in which we got 480 responses. It was very successful because my institution is very popular in these two cities, and households were really happily opening their houses to us. It was fortunate. And then in the results, what we found is that they face a big problem regarding affordability issues. In this case, Gerardo, we use gasoline prices as part of energy prices, but we also take that measure without it. So they spend in average 16% of their income in energy. That's huge, at least in terms of all the energy poverty research. Then we found that probably in the other dimension that we developed, like provision is rather, it's good, like in average for the whole city, but then the vulnerability regarding consumption and perception were not at the energy poverty level, but still is they are very important for the sustainable development future of these cities. So that's the main conclusions. We also made we created some knowledge about the effect of energy poverty in different family structures, like just elderly living with their family and so on. And we found significant differences from the experience from what it has been found in Europe, because households that only live elderly, they are less vulnerable in several sub-dimensions that we were not expecting, mainly by working with Naturally, that has a Eurocentric perspective. They were expecting that these households that only live elder persons would be more vulnerable in every sub-dimension, and we didn't find that. So that means that, at least in the context of Mexico, the energy poverty has different features, and it was very important for us to find that. So thank you.
Nice. Does anyone have any questions for Sebs? I just a very quick comment. I think it really nicely connects with what you were saying now, that I think that the global South and global North divide actually, it's contested again here, because this is more about affordability, it's not longer about accessibility in the case of Mexico.
The graphs are really amazing.
Yeah, very nicely done. Okay. Oh, someone started sharing. Okay. So, any comments, questions for now? Okay, let's continue with our last presentation so that we have then time for kind of a wider discussion that I think will be very important. And then, of course, discussing future steps. So, Maria Jose, if you could introduce your research on connecting the social energy network, multiple narratives of social entrepreneurship in energy poverty.
Yes, well, the energy poverty we all know been discussing is a complex problem that needs multi-actor and multi-level approaches. So there are different causes that lead to different solutions in different contexts. So it's not easy to identify causes and measure, as we've seen. But so I'm going to focus on a very specific actor in a fragmented network. That is the social entrepreneur. So there is a fragmented network in energy poverty now formed by governments, private companies, social entrepreneurs, NGOs, and also the communities themselves that are vulnerable communities. So all these actors are not connected. So I focus on the role of social entrepreneurs, because social entrepreneurs are hybrid and collective. So with this approach, we did a research on interpretative, qualitative research on 16 interviews to social entrepreneurs working in energy poverty. The purposive sample was coming from the Ashoka Awards to social entrepreneurs in Europe. That is a contest because the geographical context is Europe for my research, for this specific research. So in the results, we found 3 different narratives in social entrepreneurs towards energy poverty. One was more commercial approach. So we are looking at it from the perspective of the network, from the theory of social networks. One of the narratives we found was that the commercial social entrepreneurs were not even aware of the problem and of the difference in the network. They were just, so this we found. Then the more social activist approach in some of the initiatives, and also a third narrative that is more bridging. So we found that in the discussion, we mentioned that with regards to the network, this has implications because social entrepreneurs that are more social activists are exclusive of some actors like governments or main corporations, because they're by nature social activists are against the system and they want to change the system, but they have very importance in advocacy efforts. So also the bridging social entrepreneurs, and we don't want to make a classification, just provide knowledge on composition of members of the networks so that we can deal with them. And so we found that this third kind of narrative is more connecting, more inclusive of the rest of actors, and can help to the cohesion of the network because of the reflexivity on the legitimacy and trust from the different other actors, because they have a more intermediary position. And well, we believe that this role of the social entrepreneurs, this kind of social entrepreneurs, can be more coordinators of the network. So when the government is not doing this. And well, in the discussions, we used the theory of, the social network theories, and also the approach of Granoveters that says that the weak ties are good to scale and connect networks, but the strong ties are more working in depth. So they are not able sometimes to scale and connect. So with this approach, we give just a policy recommendation to develop networks that have frequent meetings of networks in energy poverty could help the more informed policies with these regular meetings, and maybe could help well, listening to the voices of everyone in those regular meetings to understand the different perspectives. And this is the final policy recommendation we make. Yes, so this is the, and also we established more lines of research in this regards on more studying the narratives of the different actors to be able to improve communication, to develop productive interactions in this kind of networks. And sometimes there are misunderstandings in the different discourses and in the collective dimension of the energy poverty. And in the communities also, we focus on energy communities and their role into this that are emerging in Europe now. Not emerging, I mean, they've been there for a long time, but now they are having more focus. Yeah, so this is the result.
Nice, thank you very much, Maria Jose. Zeus, you have a question.
Yeah, so Maria, it's very interesting your research, especially now that the Horizon Europe funds led to many projects of social entrepreneurship against energy poverty, and most of them they are quite similar, but they are not actually connecting to each other. So I have found so many of those projects, at least 4 or 5, that they don't even know about the others, and they are doing basically the same. So by showing these, you are pointing out to them that they should be connecting further. But I have a specific question. How would you transform business strategy, social entrepreneur, or social activist, social entrepreneur into a bridge one? That I think that is probably the one that is needed.
Yeah. Well, first, I would, in the strategy of large corporations, I consider that they need a bridge department to be able to start a transformation of the logics. So this is in the case of large corporations. I have a paper on this, and I explain how, well, I set up a model of inserting in the incumbents of in the energy incumbents, how to insert these new logics of social entrepreneurship, because large corporations are not ready to work with vulnerable communities. So they need intermediary profiles like social entrepreneurs that have those hybrid capabilities. So, well, this is one point. And in relation to your question is social activists and social bridges are actually doing the same, but they just need to, well, it's just complementary. We need both, you know, social activists to tackle and attack the policies and the advocacy, but also to get a transformation to understand the others, you know. So I think in the energy transition, we need to open to the rest of actors, and all the actors need to adapt and need to understand each other better. So I don't know if it's maybe ideal, but we need a transformation. So I believe more in the transformation of the system than in the change, in the total change of the system. So, well, this is a bit how I consider, and I know the critics of social entrepreneurship and I know social movements. So I studied a lot social movement theories and social entrepreneurship theories, and there is a connection among them. So it's just to create a framework and that resonates and open to everybody has the same goal, is tackling energy poverty. So we shouldn't make differences, and we should try to translate what we are all looking for and what is this for. So, well, this is a bit my thinking on this research, and try to connect. And what I found more interesting is how network meetings of different actors enrich the policies a lot. So, for example, in Belgium, the energy policy is one of the richer in different stages, because they have this network meetings since the liberalization of the energy system. Since then, they have regular meetings with all the actors, governments, vulnerable communities, etc. So this has made that the policies are really very relevant and have different voices integrated. So that's why I think, well, that's why the recommendation is towards the cohesion of the networks. And I think at national level, top down, you can develop these roundtables and make them compulsory to meet that, so that all the agents meet regularly. It's not that now there is a strategy, we meet once and then we never meet. So it has to be something regular. So the frequent relationship will help the understanding. Well, this is maybe my very practical approach, but it's my approach because I come from the practical experience. So thanks for your question. I don't know if it's clarify anything, but
we actually have a question from Dr. Rakija to three of the presenters, well, to everyone. She's asking, can you comment on the types of trade-offs that different actors you research are making in order to afford energy in an urban context?
Trade-offs. Well, trade-offs would be that, you mean like there is always tensions in the actors, in all actors have different tensions. So that's what I'm exploring. That's a process of understanding more about the context or about the vulnerability. So actors that are used to more commercial approaches need to get training on other capabilities, like other more social capabilities. So those are the trade-offs that I see, that all the actors need to complement the capabilities to make them more hybrid. So that's why I believe social entrepreneurs by nature are in a position that are by definition hybrid and collective. And this is the role they've been developing since they started. And this is how the definitions of social entrepreneurs. So, and they can do the translation among the different actors because they can connect the different capabilities and try to adapt the languages to one on each other, because the discourses and narratives are totally different. Even in the language communication, the wording they use is different, so it can create a lot of struggles.
Anyone else would like to jump in and answer that question? I know we're running out of time. We actually ran out of time. So I would suggest, so very quickly, I think it was just, would like to first of all, congratulate everyone for your amazing research. It was amazing. You know, I heard your presentations maybe 3 times. I read your papers. It was such fascinating research. I really hope that we can continue connecting in the future. I guess this was a nice format to kind of have a little bit more deep conversation, but as we could see, it's definitely not enough time. Definitely, I thought I think it would be. I thought it was a really interesting way of challenging the north-south divide, as I mentioned before. So so suddenly we see access problems in the north, and we have affordability problems in the south. So just in the case of Kenya, Mexico, I actually and the access, of course, in Israel, and I see it as well in Ireland. It was really interesting to see how is it that discussions of how is it that we understand energy poverty. Do we see it from the individual? Do we see it from the community level, at the community level, or what should it be, institutional or structural? That was really interesting conversations within the presentations as well. I loved that, you know, I loved the word about relational. So we need to see it as a relational process. Therefore, the importance of trust, of networks, of interaction. So therefore, the importance of listening and understanding each other to therefore be able to understand energy poverty and address it. And also, of course, new kinds of energy poverty arising, and therefore also new ways of addressing them, and needs new ways of that we need to think about to address them linked to the net zero policy. So these are kind of like some of the main reflections that I took from the panel. And therefore, as I mentioned before, Routledge has been in contact with us so many times. We're gonna meet in person to talk about the possibility of publishing an edited collection on this theme. I don't know if you're interested. I know that some of you have already published some of your work that you presented here, but I also know that, of course, you must have a lot more unpublished work that could be part of this book. I think that it would be interesting in this book to look at the new methods to identify energy poor households and also characterize the ones that are most at risk within the context of today, which of course is very different. And then also, of course, keep discussing how is it that this could be addressed. And I think it would be really nice to connect it with an idea of a net zero world. So any thoughts about that, comments? Would you be interested? Or any ways of interacting in the future that you think would be useful?
Yes, I'm interested, but also I would like to talk more about the others of these two panel sessions to work together.
Yeah, I think it would be good to take these conversations further. I know sometimes time is limited here, but probably you can advise on how these conversations can be taken further and beyond this. And I welcome the idea of the publications on Routledge, and probably you could share more information about this, like what would our contribution be like, or how we go about it. I think some more information about this would be important for us.
I'm interested too, but yeah, we need to know how many pages are and the delay too.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess so. I could send you the guidelines of how is it that we could go about building a book proposal, and based on this, whoever would be interested in participating, then maybe we could do a meeting. We could be of course a Zoom meeting where we discuss, which would be kind of like the main arguments of the book. How is it that it would be novel? How is it that would be how is it that our research could be connected? We could discuss that and then push the idea of this proposal forward, if that's okay with you. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's been such an insightful and interesting morning. Thank you very much for your presentations. These sessions will be recorded, so if you want to come back to them, and of course connect with each other in the meantime, that would be great. I will definitely be contacting some of you for some of our projects. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, morning, evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.